Hello and welcome. I am Lian Buan, and this is Rappler Talk. There's always a time for everything. That is what the human rights lawyers in the Philippines said last night when the International Criminal Court pre-trial chamber authorized the investigation into killings in President Rodrigo Duterte's drug war and killings by the alleged Davao Death Squad from 2011 to 2016. Duterte is the first Philippine president to be subjected to an ICC investigation, and the Philippines is one of only 15 countries in the world in the investigation stage of the ICC. What happens from this point on? We will talk to Filipino lawyer Emerlynne Gil, currently the Deputy Regional Director for Research of Amnesty International. Good evening in London, Attorney M.
Good evening in Manila, but good morning here.
Ay,
Hello,
oo nga
Lian.
pala. Yes, 11 a.m. in London kayo have such a fantastic natural light. I'll go to my first question, Attorney M. Yun nga na parang in more than 100 member states of the ICC, 15 lang yung nasa investigation at kasama na tayo nun. And that paints to some people a picture of, are we one of the worst countries in the world? Because I remember Harry Roque saying from a past press briefing, parang sinasabi niya, kamukha ba tayo ng Darfur? Hindi naman tayo ganon kagrabe. So what can you say to that we are one of the few who have an investigation stage going on at the ICC?
Well, I don't like comparing countries kasi lahat ng mga countries all over the world may kanya-kanyang mga problema. Each is unique in its own context. This case in the ICC, the fact that we are in the ICC right now only speaks to the particular fact that crimes against humanity or crimes which the court has jurisdiction over exist or may exist in the Philippines. Yun lang. And the fact that also goes back to the fact that our domestic court systems or our domestic justice system does not have the capacity or the political will to take on these cases.
All right, thanks. Yung second question ko is really, I think the questions of a lot of people is this President Duterte under investigation? Kasi hindi naman siya categorical na sinasabi ng pre-trial chamber, but the whole case is about him. It's his war on drugs, and the judges said his public statements seem to have enabled the state policy. So is there reason to believe that President Duterte will be the one prosecuted by the ICC?
Nasa ICC na yan. That's their particular decision which will emerge after a thorough investigation. Walang pangalan kasi we still believe in innocent until proven guilty, right? So it is up to the ICC to actually conduct an independent investigation and decide later on kung sino yung kanilang ipoprosecute. But Amnesty International and other human rights organizations, we want everyone reasonably suspected of criminal responsibility for extrajudicial executions and associated violations to be investigated and held accountable kung sino pa yan, and regardless of how high that person sits in our government.
Pero yung ICC ba, yung design ba ng ICC, is it really towards the head of state or pwede siyang go after the smaller fish, kumbaga?
It's the how ICC works. It's regardless of rank or status. It would cover investigations up to the level of the president or other senior officials, or even those of the lower rank.
So now, yung stage natin ngayon, the Office of the Prosecutor is now collecting evidence to potentially seek warrants of arrest and summonses. Anong mga klaseng ebidensya yung mga hinahanap or tatargetin ng OTP to be able to request for warrants of arrest?
Particularly yung mga testimonies ng victims and witnesses, yun yung important. So Lian, just to note also na yung court, hindi kailangan, or representatives of the court, hindi kailangan pumasok sa Pilipinas to conduct its investigation. Hindi nila kailangan mag-travel pa sa Pilipinas, although it's preferable. The government may or may not cooperate with the investigation, although of course it's preferable that the government cooperates with the investigation. What the court, it's going to be difficult, but it is doable. The court can actually liaise with victims and witnesses remotely. It is possible. It will be able to investigate or conduct its investigation independently. And on this particular aspect, yung may napaka-importanteng role to play are civil society actors na sila yung lumalapit or sila yung nagko-connect sa mga biktima at witnesses to the court.
Interesting that you point that out, Attorney M. Kasi yan yung sinabi kanina sa Malacanang ni spokesperson Harry Roque. Sabi niya, tingin niya it will never reach trial because tingin niya matutulog lang yung kaso kasi wala namang makikipag-cooperate na mga witnesses. Let's say the witnesses or the police officers, the lower ranking ones, stay loyal to President Duterte. Anong klase pang ebidensya yung pwedeng hanapin or ma-obtain ng Office of the Prosecutor to tie it all up, to prove a state policy?
I'm not entirely sure if it would be prudent to say na walang ebidensya. Kasi marami ng mga human rights groups, marami ng mga grupo na even before the ICC conducted its investigation, they've been monitoring and documenting these extrajudicial killings and other related violations sa atin. So meron ng pinanghahawakan ang mga civil society groups and human rights groups. And if the government refuses to cooperate, you still have the victims, you still have the family members, you still have those who witness, who may not be part of who may not be police authorities, who are willing to step up.
Bukod sa arrest warrant, ang isa pang pwedeng i-issue ng ICC is yung summon. Kapag may sinomon ba, for example, let's say a cabinet secretary ay ma-summon, is that an indication na kasali siya sa ipo-prosecute or is it just the ICC wanting to hear more from officials?
A summon is a summons. So delikado if sasabihin natin kapag kasama ka sa summons, baka ikaw yung isa sa ipo-prosecute. So baka wala nang mag-respond to the summons in that way. But a warrant is very different from a summon. So those are entirely two different things. Ang warrant is may sufficient evidence na pwede kang i-aresto. I also would like to note, Lian, na kasi iniisip ko, ano bang ibang mga countries na who were placed in a similar situation? So naisip ko yung isa is Sudan, na hanggang ngayon they are at the investigation stage, I believe, and summons and warrants have been issued to certain officials sa Sudan, pero ayaw kasing makipag-cooperate ng government. Until now, they don't want to surrender these government officials who are either subject of the warrants or to whom summonses have been issued. This process can go like 20 years, similar to Sudan, but at the end of it all, ang isa sa pinaka-importanteng dapat na takeaway natin dito is no one is above the law. Kahit na cabinet official ka, kahit na presidente ka, there is still the significant possibility that if you are indeed a perpetrator or an architect of these crimes, you can be brought to justice.
Right. And am I correct that if, for example, official A is ordered arrested and he does not surrender to the ICC, hindi siya pwedeng i-trial in absentia?
No. So the court actually relies on other states to cooperate with it, including executing arrest warrants and transferring suspects to The Hague. So that's the entire system of the court.
Ang inulit-ulit kanina ni Attorney Sal Panelo yung kanilang repeated narrative and justification na pinopolitika lang naman daw ang ICC or ginamit ng political opposition ang ICC to cast a bad light on President Duterte. But it is not a secret that the political opposition really had a lot of involvement in this. Kasi the Senator Trillanes, Congressman Alejano were among the ones who filed the communication. NUPL was among the groups who filed the communication. Big factor ba na meron talagang mga strong and really big groups, influential groups who are pushing for an accountability in the ICC?
It doesn't matter what your political affiliations are. If you believe that crimes are being committed, I think it is incumbent upon you to actually shine a light on these crimes so that these crimes would not be repeated. So regardless kung sino yung nag-file or brought the ICC's attention to these crimes, I think it's still very important that these crimes would be investigated. So it's like wagging the dog, alam mo yon, na alam lahat, alam ng mga tao. I mean, everyone in the Philippines knows that at some point there was somebody killed in some street in their neighborhood, and no investigation or nobody has been brought to justice for that killing. Everyone has that, or a lot of people in the Philippines have that kind of experience, and it's very unrealistic to just wag the dog. Alam mo yung kasabihan na wagging the dog instead of wagging the tail, na sinasabi mo, politika lang yan. You're not actually shining a light. You're not actually addressing the actual problem, which is maraming pinapatay sa Pilipinas na walang hustisya. Yun lang. Whether or not politika yan or somebody else is trying to foment dissent against Duterte. But the fact remains is that there have been thousands of people killed at walang investigasyon. We only know of one case where there were people who got prosecuted. This was Kian's case. And among the thousands, nobody else.
Yeah. Siyempre, we know the attitude of President Duterte towards ICC or any international law mechanism for that matter. So we expect him to go hard on this and undermine the ICC once more. Hindi natin alam kung paano niya iinsultuhin si Prosecutor Karimkan, di ba? Kasi we know his insults towards Prosecutor Bensouda dati. Is this a new technique for a head of state to undermine an ICC proceeding?
Of government officials, even in other countries, who do this. And again, it's going back to what I'm saying na wag the dog. Sinasabi mo, ay, pangit yung taong yan. Or it's poisoning the well. Sorry. Balik tayo sa mga metaphors natin. It's poisoning the well na sasabihin natin, ay, yung tao na yan ay pinolotika lang. Kahit na totoo naman yung mga allegations. It is definitely a tactic, but I'm not entirely sure at this point it would be successful. Kasi very clear na ang daming nangyayari na ganito ng killings na wala namang mga kaso, walang investigasyon. Also, if our government officials, including President Duterte, really believes in justice and really loves the Philippines, I mean, let the investigation go on, cooperate with the ICC. Kasi ito lang ang paraan na nakikita natin ngayon na i-address yung impunity sa atin, na pwedeng i-end itong patayan sa atin.
Based dun sa report na nilabas ng registry dun sa kanilang representation process, I think wala namang dearth or walang kakulangan ng mga biktimang readyng makipag-cooperate sa ICC. Siguro yung iniisip lang ng mga ibang tao, ano yung ebidensya na makakapag-tie up na policy to na merong kumumpas sa taas? Ano ba yung, may track record ba ang Office of the Prosecutor ng ICC in being able to get crucial insiders in government para maging witness laban dun sa mga kumumpas ng state policy?
When you're trying to establish a pattern, I don't think it's necessary for you to actually get somebody from the government. A pattern is a pattern. Nakikita mo the way the people are being killed are the same. Nakikita mo that the way the government responds to each killing are the same. nakikita mo na the way there is inaction in each and every killing, it's the same. So that in itself already establishes a pattern. Hindi kailangan na may somebody from the government actually says, yes, there was a pattern and we actually spoke about it and planned it. That would be good. That would be helpful. But if you want to establish a pattern and how systemic it was, you can just look at how all these people have been killed.
In the past ba, nagkaroon na ng isang investigasyon that by the end, bago pa makarating sa arrest warrant, ay drinop ng OTP ang kanilang investigasyon? Hindi sila tumuloy?
Hindi ko maalala. Wala akong alam na may of a situation na merong investigasyon na inauthorize, tapos yung OTP failed to put cases together and hindi sila nag-issue ng arrest warrants or summonses. I don't think that has ever happened. When the OTP is able to put cases together, when the OTP has been authorized and then is able to put the cases together, usually arrest warrants, dumarating yan, summonses, dumarating yan.
So ano yung prospect natin ngayon sa Philippine situation? You know nga, sabi nga, this could, for some countries, it went on 20 years. Yung Afghanistan, ang tagal-tagal na din. What is the international community's prospect about the Philippines? Mabilis ba to?
We have to be realistic. If the government refuses to cooperate, well, yeah, that it may take some time. But then we want to have justice. And if it takes time to obtain justice, let's give that some time. Importante ito sa Pilipinas, hindi importante na maintindihan ng mga Pilipino na hindi mabilis ang proseso na ganito. It takes time for these kinds of cases to develop. However, it would actually be quicker if the government cooperates with the investigation. And Lian, can I just say that this is actually very important now. Kasi next year, is it less than a year, we will actually be choosing our leaders, our new leaders. So gusto ba natin na ipatuloy itong patayan sa atin? Gusto ba natin na ang magkaroon ng hustisya, mas mabilis ang pagkakaroon ng hustisya ng mga pinatay, yung mga victims of extrajudicial killings? So I'm hoping that the Filipinos will consider this as an important point kasi nakakapagod na maraming pinapatay araw-araw sa ating bansa.
Sorry, Attorney M, that was my internet acting up. Nakaka-third world kumpara sa London internet mo. But you made a very important point na mag-election na sa 2022, and I guess it's a good note to end this interview with. As we say in Rappler, we decide in 2022, so we choose kung anong bansa ang gusto nating makuha. With that, maraming salamat for giving us the time. I know you're very busy. That was Attorney Emerlynne Gil, the Deputy Regional Director for Research of Amnesty International. I am Lian Buan. Thank you for watching Rappler Talk.
Salamat, Lian.